to be calm, precise, elegant. A quiet walk spoiled only by the occasional missed putt. But when egos, pressure, and physics collide, it becomes one of the funniest, most painfully embarrassing moments in golf history. 1. The day a pro went full WWE on a fan. It was supposed to be a regular tournament round, but when a heckler in the gallery mouthed off one too many times, one player decided enough was enough. He ducked under the rope, marched straight toward the stands, and swung his putter like he was about to settle things the old-fashioned way. Security stepped in before anything happened, but the clip went viral, mostly because his playing partner calmly sank a par putt, while chaos brewed just a few feet away. 2. Shuffle, shuffle, still shuffling. Some players are known for their swing. Patrick Cantlay is known for his shuffling. Before every shot, he wiggles his feet and adjusts his stance for what feels like eternity. It reached peak comedy when Phil Mickelson calculated the total number of foot shuffles in a round and compared it to a gym workout online. Fans roasted him relentlessly, but Cantlay shrugged it off. Apparently, you can't rush perfection or glacial pace. 3. The driver that didn't survive the ride. Just minutes before a playoff, one golfer hopped into a cart feeling confident, until a gallery rope wrapped around her bag and snapped her driver clean in half. She'd already lost her primary driver earlier that week, so this was her backup. Forced to tee off with a 3-wood, she still held her own, but her opponent drained an eagle and stole the win. Sometimes it's not the swing that ruins your day, it's the golf cart. 4. Tiger plus Phil equals total disaster. Pairing two of the greatest golfers ever should have been a dream. Instead, it was a nightmare. When Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson were paired in the Ryder Cup, everyone expected fireworks. They got miscommunication, frustration, and 0 points. They used different types of golf balls, hated each other's style, and lost both matches. Europe steamrolled the US, and the super team became a cautionary tale in chemistry. 5. The champion who swam for his ball. Richard Finch was cruising toward a win when his second shot landed near a riverbank. Determined to save the hole, he swung hard from the slope and toppled straight into the water. Drenched but undeterred, he scrambled out and still managed to win the tournament. But the highlight reel wasn't about his victory. It was about the man who fell into a river mid-swing. 6. The fan who stole a pro's ball. Twice. Nelly Korda had seen a lot on the course, but she hadn't seen this. During a major, a fan casually walked up and picked up her ball mid-round, holding it up like a souvenir. 2 years later, in the exact same tournament, a kid did it again. Both times, she handled it with grace, but it left fans wondering if the event needed ball security as much as player security. 7. The ball that rolled away by itself. Ricky Fowler was coasting with a 4-shot lead when things got weird. After a couple of unlucky rolls into the water, he placed his ball and walked away, only for it to roll back into the hazard by itself. Nobody touched it, no wind, just gravity betraying him. The penalty strokes piled up, his lead vanished, and his frustration was visible to everyone watching. 8. The legal but suspicious putter. Bernhard Langer technically followed the rules when anchored putting was banned. He just barely moved his hand off his chest. Officials cleared it repeatedly, but fans weren't convinced. Every big putt sparked debates about whether he was breaking the spirit of the rule. It was like watching someone obey the letter of the law while flipping off the rule book. 9. The vanishing golf ball. Stephen Gallacher was on a roll until his drive disappeared into thick rough and refused to be found. He hit again, same result, and again. On his 4th attempt, he finally found fairway, but the damage was done. A quadruple bogey and a career highlight turned blooper reel. 10. The white pants incident. White pants on a rainy day? Bold choice. One golfer's attempt to save par from a creek turned into slapstick comedy when he slipped and landed squarely on his backside, soaking his pristine outfit. He still made par, but the internet didn't care. The memes practically wrote themselves. 11. The par 5 catastrophe. Phil Mickelson once carded a 10 on a par 5. It started with a perfect drive and ended with disaster. Water balls, wild misses, and mounting strokes. By the time he finally holed out, even the commentators were speechless. It was a brutal reminder that even legends can implode. 12. A chip shot for the ages, and not in a good way. Hunter Mahan needed a routine up and down to win the Ryder Cup. Instead, he chunked the chip so badly it barely moved. He missed the putt, lost the match, and watched Europe erupt in celebration. For a man who'd nailed that shot 1,000 times before, it was a moment that stung for years. 13. The sprinkler head geyser. Trying to smooth down sand after a bunker shot. One frustrated pro accidentally hit a sprinkler head. Water gushed everywhere, flooding the green and creating chaos. He still managed to make par, but the image of him turning the 17th hole into a water feature became instant golf lore. "14. Blaming the caddy. Bubba Watson's meltdown at the Travelers Championship was bad enough. He hit his ball into the water and triple bogeyed, but blaming his caddy for the club selection on live TV turned a tough moment into a PR disaster. Fans roasted him for weeks. 15. The bikini wax ban. A commentator once described Augusta's greens as being bikini waxed. That, combined with calling mounds body bags, got him banned from Masters broadcasts forever. It turns out Augusta National has a sense of humor, just not that kind. 16. The shush heard round the world. Patrick Reed shushed a hostile European Ryder Cup crowd after sinking a putt. They responded with even louder boos. Whether you think it was bold or dumb, it made for legendary TV and cemented Reed's reputation as golf's ultimate villain. 17. The trash talk backfire. Brooks Koepka mocked his competition for having fewer majors than him before a final round. Then he shot a brutal 74 and finished tied for 29th. The lesson? If you're going to talk trash, you better back it up. 18. 7 putts of doom. Ben Crenshaw, one of the best putters in history, once took 7 putts on a single green. Panic set in, everything fell apart, and he eventually walked off the course mid-round. The putting gods can be cruel. 19. The practice swing penalty. Hudson Swafford took a casual practice swing and accidentally hit his own ball with a flying divot. 1 stroke penalty, embarrassment, and a new entry in the rulebook of ridiculousness. 20. Throwing the captain under the bus. Phil Mickelson once used a Ryder Cup press conference to publicly criticize his own captain, while the man sat right next to him. The tension in the room was so thick you could slice it with a wedge. Players stared at the floor, and reporters shifted in their seats as Mickelson calmly praised the leadership style of a different former captain, pointing out how players had been trusted and involved in decisions back then. It was a clear dig at the current captain's approach, and the silence that followed made it even more awkward. Watson sat there stone-faced, saying nothing, while one of his star players called out the team's failures in real time. 21. The 10-inch miss. John Rahm once missed a 10-inch putt. 10 inches. It wasn't a tricky downhill slider or a pressure-packed clutch moment. It was the kind of tap-in most people would make without even looking. Fans watching at home collectively screamed, commentators fell silent, and Rahm just stood there staring at the ball like it had personally betrayed him. It was a rare lapse in focus from one of the game's best, and the stunned look on his face said it all. Even the pros aren't safe from golf's most humiliating moments. 22. Disqualified over a towel. Craig Stadler knelt on a towel to avoid dirtying his pants. A viewer called in, and officials ruled he'd built a stance. 2-stroke penalty. But because he'd already signed his card, he was disqualified, losing $37,000 in the process. 23. 6-putt meltdown. Danny Lee's 6-putt horror show ended with him smashing his putter into his bag and withdrawing due to a wrist injury. Sure, Danny. 24. The Great Collapse. Greg Norman once entered Sunday at the Masters with a 6-shot lead, the kind of cushion that usually guarantees a green jacket. But Augusta has a way of humbling even the best. Shot by shot, that lead began to slip away as missed fairways, shaky putts, and mounting pressure took their toll. Nick Faldo, calm and relentless, kept applying pressure until Norman's confidence completely unraveled. By the time he reached the back 9, the collapse was in full swing. When his crucial chip on the 15th hole slid past the cup, something in him seemed to break. He dropped to the ground, staring at the sky in disbelief before lying back on the grass, a man watching his dream disintegrate. He went on to lose by 5 shots, and that image of Norman sprawled on Augusta's fairway remains one of golf's most haunting reminders that no lead is ever safe. 25. Security guard blitz. A security guard once slipped and nearly tackled Tiger Woods while trying to protect him from fans. Thankfully, Tiger was fine, but the guard's dignity didn't survive. 26. 10 on a par 3. Nelly Korda once carded a 10 on a par 3 after hitting the water 3 times. It was a rare off day for one of golf's most consistent players, and a brutal reminder that the sport has no mercy. 27. Tiger's triple dip. Even the GOAT isn't safe. Tiger Woods once hit 3 consecutive balls into the water at Augusta's 12th hole, finishing with a 10, his worst single-hole score ever. Even he laughed at the absurdity. 28. The Birdman Incident. A man dressed as a bird ran onto the green during the US Open. Security tackled him, the crowd roared, and the winner made a joke about enjoying his jail cell. It was absurd, hilarious, and unforgettable. 29. The Yips Take Over. Ernie Els took 6 putts from close range on the very first hole of a tournament. The dreaded Yips turned a confident start into a humiliating 10. Fans winced. Els shook his head. 30. The Walk of Shame. Kevin. No once needed 16 strokes to finish a par 4. He lost count mid-hole and had to ask his caddy for help. By the time the ball finally dropped, the gallery had gone from gasps to giggles. Even Na laughed about it later, calling it his walk of shame. Golf is often described as a gentleman's game, but let's be honest, it's also a playground for chaos. It's a sport where even the best in the world can be humbled by a 10-inch putt, a rogue sprinkler, or a fan dressed as a bird. And maybe that's why we love it so much. Because beneath the green jackets, million-dollar sponsorships, and polished swings, it's still a game where one bad decision can turn you into a meme for life. If you enjoyed this ride through golf's greatest disasters, stick around. There's a lot more where this came from. And who knows, the next unforgettable meltdown might be just one swing away.
Ryder Cup history has never lacked emotion, but some moments have gone beyond defeat into outright humiliation, like Ricky Fowler in 2023. With the Ryder Cup on the line, he stood on the 16th hole at Marco Simone, needing to hang on. He hit into the water, then scrambled for par, only to concede a short putt to Tommy Fleetwood, handing Europe the victory without a fight. Viewers were stunned. Why give up the cup so easily? That moment is now etched into Ryder Cup infamy.
Clinch, of course, will only be awarded after the match comes to a conclusion, but he knows the significance of that.
But this wasn't the first time a veteran lost his cool. Back in 1987, Ben Crenshaw, the Southern gentleman of golf, did the unthinkable. After a frustrating hole at Muirfield Village, he smashed a nut on the ground with his putter and broke it in half. Unable to replace it mid-round, he was forced to putt with a 1-iron. Yes, a 1-iron. The image of Crenshaw crouching over the green with a long iron became a symbol of how even golf's calmest pros can snap under Ryder Cup pressure.
Eamon Darcy now for the win. The 1-up victory, and the Europeans' lead is back to 2, 13-11.
And who could forget Hal Irwin in 1991? At Kiowa Island, his tee shot flew toward the dunes, only to miraculously bounce back onto the fairway. It was a lucky break. But then, he chunked his next shot and blew the hole. Some say a spectator might have helped the ball back into play, but it didn't matter. He couldn't convert the gift. Even in a year the U.S. won, Irwin's misfire stood out as a moment of embarrassment.
Out of the bunker at 15 to save par.
The Ryder Cup is where pressure turns diamonds into dust, and in 2010, Hunter Mahan found that out the hard way. On the 17th hole at Celtic Manor, with the cup on the line, he hit a weak tee shot that barely made it off the tee box. Then, in front of millions, he flubbed his chip. The ball barely moved. Mahan dropped his head, visibly rattled. Graham McDowell didn't even need to do anything flashy. Mahan had already cracked. Europe won. Mahan wept. The moment haunted him for years.
Everton, who blitzed the team of Padraig Harrington and Luke Donald to the tune of a 3-2 victory, giving the Americans a 2.5 to 1.5 point lead in the first session. But
then there was Matt Kuchar in 2012. Facing a tough line near the trees, he tried a miracle shot instead of playing it safe. The ball smacked a tree trunk and ricocheted backwards, even deeper into trouble. The crowd groaned and commentators questioned his decision-making. What should have been a heroic moment turned into a classic Ryder Cup fail. But perhaps no ending stung as much as Phil Mickelson's final Ryder Cup moment in 2018. On the 16th hole at Le Golf National, His ball found the water. Europe was already dominating. Phil simply removed his hat and conceded the match. For a legend of the game, it was a quiet, anticlimactic exit, and fans felt the pain of watching a hero's last bow come with a splash and a handshake.
It's official. It's official. Europe has the Ryder Cup back. And it's appropriate that McIlroy is the guy to officially get it done.
Sometimes the most humiliating moments aren't just about swings, they're about decisions. Rory McIlroy knows this firsthand. In 2018, facing Justin Thomas on the 18th hole, Rory hit into a steep bunker, then into the water. He didn't even make it to the green before conceding. But that wasn't the only time Rory made headlines. In 2012, he nearly missed his tee time due to a time zone mix-up. A police escort rushed him to the course. He arrived 12 minutes before the match, barely warmed up. Miraculously, he won, but not before becoming the punchline of Ryder Cup memes.
From the hotel, which is about 15 minutes from here at Medina. The issue was the timing. The car is right here. Here is Rory McIlroy arriving. His tee time is 11:25.
Even the biggest stars have stumbled. Take 2004 when Team USA paired Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson, the dream duo. It turned into a nightmare. Mickelson had just switched equipment and their chemistry was off. They lost both matches together. What was supposed to be a symbol of American dominance became an example of ego over teamwork. The partnership was never repeated.
So now, Woods set about the task of keeping on the straight and what to them seemed an increasingly narrow target. Amazing from the...
And it's not just players. In 2008, Nick Faldo publicly blamed Sergio Garcia for the team's struggles, accusing him of personal distractions. Garcia didn't fire back. He just quietly kept playing. Years later, he surpassed Faldo to become the all-time Ryder Cup points leader, a poetic reversal. Faldo's comment aged poorly, Garcia's play did the talking. Sometimes, the most humiliating moments at the Ryder Cup aren't created by the players, but by the crowd itself. Few events in golf ignite fan emotion like this tournament, and when that energy turns ugly, it can derail even the best. Take the 1999 Ryder Cup at Brookline. Known for its wild American crowd and the infamous Battle of Brookline, the atmosphere was electric and hostile. One moment stood out above all. Jose Maria Olazabal was lining up a putt to keep Europe alive when the US team and fans exploded in celebration before he'd even hit it. Justin Leonard had drained a monster putt to take the lead, and suddenly the green was stormed by players, wives, caddies, all before Olazabal had even putted. He missed. And while it secured an incredible US comeback, the sportsmanship, or lack of it, sparked global outrage. The European team was furious. Commentators called it classless. Even years later, the incident is viewed as one of the most disrespectful endings in Ryder Cup history. But that wasn't the only time fans crossed the line. In 2016 at Hazeltine, Rory McIlroy silenced a heckler with a thunderous birdie putt, and a scream so loud it echoed across the fairways. But before that, fans have been taunting European players for hours, yelling insults, questioning their focus, even mocking their families. At one point, a fan was ejected after confronting Rory directly. The Ryder Cup has passion, yes, but sometimes that passion becomes poison. Then there was the 2002 Ryder Cup at the Belfry, where Colin Montgomery was jeered relentlessly by American fans for his slow play and weight. His father, watching in the stands, was reportedly reduced to tears. European captain Sam Torrens publicly condemned the fans' behavior, calling it disgraceful. It reminded everyone that while competition is fierce, decency matters, and humiliation can come from more than a missed putt. Even in recent years, social media has amplified the cruelty. When Bryson DeChambeau struggled during the 2021 Ryder Cup at Whistling Straits, the online commentary became relentless. His quirky style and public feud with Brooks Koepka already made him a target. But during the event, fans took it further, mocking his warm-ups, his gear, his personality. One viral meme read, "Bryson's golf game needs as much science as his swing." Humiliation doesn't just happen on the course anymore. It follows players off it and lingers long after. The Ryder Cup is about national pride, but it's also a pressure cooker. Every swing, every decision, every comment is magnified. For every heroic shot, there's a moment of shame waiting to join the history books.
Six-shot lead, final round at Augusta. Greg Norman, the most dominant player of his era, was about to exorcise his master's demons, or so everyone thought. What happened over the next 4 hours wasn't just a collapse, it was one of the most brutal, public executions in sports history. April 14th, 1996. The date alone carries weight, exactly 84 years after the Titanic slipped beneath the icy Atlantic. That Sunday in Georgia, another unsinkable legend was about to meet the same fate, but unlike that midnight disaster, this one would unfold in broad daylight, in front of millions, one agonizing shot at a time. Greg Norman was golf royalty, the great white shark. That nickname wasn't just marketing fluff, it captured everything about the man. Platinum blonde hair whipping in the wind, 6-foot frame cutting an athletic silhouette, and an aggressive playing style that made conservative golfers wince. He didn't lay up, he didn't play safe, he attacked courses like a predator. By 1996, Norman had spent 331 weeks as the world's #1 golfer. He'd won 90 tournaments worldwide. 2 British Open championships hung on his wall, but there was one green jacket missing from his closet, and it haunted him. Augusta National had become Norman's personal torture chamber. In 1986, he'd led all 4 majors after 54 holes, the only player ever to accomplish that feat. They called it the Saturday Slam. But on Sundays, magic turned to tragedy. At that year's Masters, a 46-year-old Jack Nicklaus fired a back 930 to steal the championship. Norman needed a 15-foot par putt on 18 to force a playoff. He missed. A year later, Larry Mize, an Augusta native and 20-1 underdog, chipped in from 140 feet on the second playoff hole. Norman stood there, stunned, as the ball disappeared into the cup. Then came the 1986 PGA Championship, where Bob Tway holed out from a greenside bunker on the 72nd hole. The pattern was unmistakable. Norman was cursed. But 1996 felt different. Thursday's opening round erased all doubt. Norman matched the Augusta course record with a blistering 63. Only the second time anyone had shot that number at the Masters. 6 pars to start, then 9 birdies over the final 12 holes. It was surgical. By Friday, his lead had stretched to 4 strokes. Saturday, playing in the final pairing with Nick Faldo, Norman extended it to 6, a 6-shot lead at Augusta, with 18 holes to play, against a field that included the world's best golfers. Peter Dobereiner, a pipe-smoking British golf writer, spotted Norman leaving the clubhouse Saturday evening. "Even you can't fuck this up," he told the Shark. Norman tried to laugh. He couldn't. That night, sleep never came. Norman tossed in the rental house, his mind racing through every scenario, every nightmare that Augusta had inflicted on him before. "I'm probably the only guy in the world who thinks, I don't know if I can hold it," he later confessed to sports psychologist Rick Jensen. The doubts weren't just mental, they were physical. When Norman woke Sunday morning, something felt wrong. His feet, hips, and shoulders felt misaligned. He went for a walk through the neighborhood, trying to shake the feeling. He couldn't. There was another distraction. Norman's wife, Laura, had arranged for friends from South Florida to fly up on his private plane to watch the final round and celebrate the inevitable victory. Norman was a superstitious competitor who never presumed anything. The presumption felt like a hex. On the driving range, Norman turned to his caddy, Tony Navarro, and coach, Butch Harmon. "The club is stuck," he said. His lower body wasn't rotating properly. It wouldn't have been obvious to most golfers. But at the highest level, under the most intense pressure, being a little off becomes catastrophic. Harmon tried to reassure him, tweaking his setup, feeding him confidence. But Norman's eyes betrayed the truth. He was terrified. The first tee. Norman tried to hit his trademark hard fade with the driver. Instead, he yanked it dead left into the trees. Bogey. The 6-shot lead became 5 before most spectators had found their seats. Faldo, meanwhile, made an efficient par. The Englishman was a methodical assassin. 3 Masters titles already in his trophy case. A man who understood Augusta's cruel quirks. While Norman was unraveling, Faldo was turning into a machine. For 7 holes, Norman clung to his lead like a man holding onto a life raft in a storm. He made a scrambling par on 3. Then came the 8th hole, where Faldo drained a 20-foot birdie putt. The lead was 3. Norman could feel the sand shifting beneath him. On the 9th hole, with 98 yards to the pin, Norman tried to be macho, his words. He pulled out a wedge, swung hard, and came up short. The ball landed on a sloped green, then kept rolling, and rolling, and rolling. 30 yards back down the fairway toward him. Another bogey. The lead was 2. Sports psychologist Fran Pirozzolo was walking the course that day. He'd worked with Norman earlier in his career. "I could see the end was coming for Greg on number 9, he recalled. "It was like watching a train wreck, then watching my friend bleed." The back 9 at Augusta is called the greatest finishing stretch in golf. Norman had played it at 11 under par through the first 3 days. Now, it was about to devour him. On the 10th hole, Norman flew a simple chip shot over the flag and couldn't convert the 8-foot comeback putt. Bogey. One-shot lead. The galleries were starting to shift, sympathy replacing celebration. These weren't just golf fans, they were witnesses to something darkly historic. Hole 11. A par 4 that Norman played perfectly. 2 crisp shots, green in regulation, 10 feet for birdie. This was his chance to regain control, to remind everyone why he was the best player in the world. The birdie putt shaved the lip, stayed out, fine. 2-putt par to maintain the lead, except the return putt was only 3 feet, and it missed. Bogey. Faldo parred. For the first time all tournament, the lead was gone. They were tied. Nick Faldo wasn't doing anything spectacular. He wasn't making eagles or draining 50-footers. He was making pars while Norman made bogeys. In any other context, a final round 67 is excellent. But Faldo's round was more than excellent. It was ruthless. He sensed Norman's vulnerability and simply refused to give him any oxygen. I could feel the nervousness emanating from Greg, Faldo said. He gripped and re-gripped the club, as though he could not steel himself to hit the ball. Then came the 12th hole, Golden Bell. It's only 155 yards, but it's killed more dreams than any hole in golf. A par 3 over Rays Creek, with swirling winds and a margin for error measured in inches. Norman had flirted with disaster there all week. Friday, his ball barely stayed on the bank. Saturday, it slid into the water. Sunday, after watching Faldo safely find the green, Norman pulled his 7-iron. The ball started well, landed short, gripped for a second, then gently rolled backward into the creek. Double bogey. Faldo was now 2 strokes ahead. In 4 holes, Norman had lost 5 shots to par. Faldo had made 4 pars. Augusta's back 9 offers redemption. The par 5 13th, Azalea, is birdieable. Both players made birdie. The 14th, another chance. Both parred. Then came the 15th, another par 5 where eagles are possible. Norman hit a solid approach, leaving himself a chip for 3. The ball rolled toward the cup. The crowd held its breath. For one crystalline moment, it looked like it was going in, like Norman might find that one spark of magic to reignite hope. The ball slid past by inches. Norman collapsed to the ground, falling to his knees in anguish. The cameras captured it all. A man broken in real time. I really thought it was in, he said later. The golf gods had delivered their verdict. Not today, not ever. The 16th hole was the final dagger. Another par 3. Norman's tee shot hooked left, short and wet. Double bogey. Faldo led by 4 with 2 holes to play. It was over. On the 17th, Norman bogeyed again while Faldo parred. On the 18th, Faldo rolled in a 20-foot birdie putt to punctuate his victory. Final score: Faldo 67, Norman 78, an 11-stroke swing. Faldo won by 5. What began as a 6-shot Norman lead became a 5-shot Faldo victory. It remains the greatest final round collapse in Masters history and tied the largest blown lead in PGA Tour history. When it was over, Faldo walked to Norman, not with a handshake, but with open arms. He pulled the shark into a bear hug, and Norman, this alpha predator, this warrior, collapsed into him. "I just want to give you a hug," Faldo said. Then he whispered words Norman would carry forever. "Don't let the bastards get you down." Faldo knew what was coming. The press conference, the questions, the public dissection of failure. For all their differences, they were as different as 2 golfers could be. In that moment, they understood something profound about competition, about grace, about what it means to put everything on the line. Norman went to the press room and answered every question honestly. No excuses, no deflection, just brutal, raw truth. When he played his next tournament at Jack Nicklaus's memorial, reporters asked about the letters he'd received. More than 7,500 handwritten notes had arrived. They all said variations of the same thing. "You honored the game. You taught us about sportsmanship. You showed us how to lose with dignity. Here's what separates major champions from legends." And here's the cruel irony. Norman had everything. The swing, the look, the nickname, the world ranking. But Augusta got in his head. Every golfer knows that feeling when you're trying too hard. When you start steering it instead of swinging it. Your hands get tight. Your breathing gets shallow. You're thinking about the outcome instead of the process. That's what killed the shark. And we all felt it watching. Faldo didn't win with birdies beating pars. He won with pars beating double bogeys. There's a psychological concept called identity threat. When you're reminded of your failures in moments of pressure, and those failures start to define you. Norman carried every heartbreak with him that Sunday. Nicklaus, Tway, Mize, the miracle shots that stole green jackets. He'd led 8 majors going into the final round before 1996, and won only once. The pattern had wired his brain for disaster. Sports psychologists now study Norman's collapse as a textbook example of learned helplessness, when repeated trauma convinces you that you can't change the outcome. But here's what people forget. Norman flew home that night on his packed plane and told his grieving friends, "Thank you for coming. Let's move on, and let's party." He never won another major, never got that Masters victory. But in losing, he won something else. The respect of every person who's ever been in the arena and fallen short. He showed us that how you handle defeat matters more than victory. That grace under pressure isn't about winning. It's about showing up to the press conference when you want to disappear. It's about walking off the 18th green with dignity when your dream just died. 29 years later, we remember 1996, not just for the collapse, but for the embrace. For two men, one broken, one victorious, sharing a moment of profound humanity. Norman's nightmare became Faldo's triumph, but both men transcended golf that day. They showed us what sportsmanship looks like when the cameras are rolling and your heart is shattered. The shark got eaten alive at Augusta, but he never stopped swimming. Picture this: a 21-year-old phenom, 4 shots clear with 9 holes to play at Augusta National. The green jacket practically hanging in his locker. Then, in the blink of an eye, everything falls apart. We're not talking about a bad hole. We're talking about hitting it between cabins, a place most golfers didn't even know existed on the course. This is the story of how one of golf's most devastating collapses didn't just break a young man's dream. It rewrote the entire playbook for how professional golfers handle pressure. April 10th, 2011. Rory McIlroy stood on the practice range at Augusta National, a 4-shot lead tucked safely in his back pocket. At just 21 years old, he'd already dominated the first 3 rounds, posting scores of 65, 69, 70. The golfing world had collectively decided this kid was about to become the youngest Masters champion since Tiger Woods. His game had been pure magic, driving it long and straight, iron play that looked effortless, and a confidence that seemed bulletproof. "This is a fantastic position to be in," McIlroy had told reporters the night before. "I'm finally starting to feel at home on this golf course." But here's the thing about Augusta. It doesn't care about your comfort. It doesn't care about your 4-shot lead. And it certainly doesn't care that you're 21 years old and the future of golf. The warning signs appeared early. Standing over that first tee shot on Sunday, something felt different. McIlroy later revealed that his second shot into the first green was the first defensive shot he'd hit all week. "I felt, don't go left, and it was then when I realized that things just weren't going to be quite as easy as they were the first 3 days," he admitted. That bogey at the first was just the appetizer. The main course of disaster was still 9 holes away. But wait. McIlroy steadied himself. He fought back with a brilliant 20-foot birdie putt at the 7th, pumping his fist as the ball dropped. He was back to 11 under, 1 shot clear of the charging pack. Behind him, Charles Schwartzel was making noise. Tiger Woods had just posted a front 931, complete with an eagle. The roars echoing through the Georgia pines would have been intimidating for anyone, let alone a 21-year-old trying to win his first major. Then came the 10th hole, the moment that would define a career and eventually transform it. McIlroy's tee shot didn't just miss left, it went violently, catastrophically left. The ball struck a tree and caromed into golf purgatory, between the white cabins that separate the main course from the par 3 course. Television viewers were stunned. Commentators stammered. "I don't think anyone's been there before off the 10th tee," McIlroy later said. The cameras captured him peeking out from behind a tree, trying to figure out where his ball had ended up, looking like a lost kid in a maze he couldn't escape. His attempt to punch out back to the fairway went low and left. His 3rd shot missed the green. His 4th shot hit another tree. By the time he tapped in, he'd made a triple bogey 7. In the span of 1 hole, McIlroy had plummeted from 1st place to 7th. The look on his face said it all. This wasn't just a bad break. This was a nightmare unfolding in real time. But the golf gods weren't done. At the 11th, another bogey. At the 12th, Augusta's devilish par 3 where so many dreams go to die, McIlroy somehow found himself inside 20 feet after a solid tee shot. Then he 4-putted for a double bogey. 4 putts from inside 20 feet. "The whole thing sort of just got to me," McIlroy later confessed. "I got a little bit flustered, rushed a little bit." Walking to the 13th tee, McIlroy was a shell of the confident kid who dominated for 3 days. His tee shot on the par 5, a hole where he should have been thinking birdie or eagle, found Rae's Creek. The cameras caught him slumped over his club, on the verge of tears, as the water swallowed any remaining hope. From the 10th green to the 14th tee, McIlroy later said, was just a bit of a blur. He'd gone from 12 under to 5 under in the span of 4 holes, a 7-shot swing that felt like a 7-hour freefall. The final 5 holes were a formality, a death march through Augusta's back 9 with thousands of eyes watching a young man's dream die. He shot 80, 8 over par. Charles Schwartzel, meanwhile, birdied the final 4 holes to win his first major at 14 under par, finishing a staggering 10 shots ahead of the kid who'd started the day in control. Standing at the scorer's table, McIlroy's voice was steady, but his eyes told a different story. "I'm feeling very disappointed right now, and I know I will be for the next few days, but I'll get past it," he said. "I was leading this tournament with 9 holes left, and I just fell apart. It's a Sunday at a major, and it can be overwhelming. This was my first experience with it." But here's where the story takes a turn. Because what happened next morning changed everything. Not just for Rory McIlroy, but for how professional golfers approach the mental side of the game. McIlroy got on the phone with his parents, Rosie and Jerry, before heading to the airport. His mom said something like, "Oh, don't worry, Rory, everything will be okay." And that's when the dam broke. "I just blubbered back, 'No, it won't be okay,'" McIlroy later revealed. "At the time, it felt like the only chance I would have of winning at Augusta, and I blew it. When did I last cry over golf? I don't know, when I was a kid probably." His parents, working-class folks from Northern Ireland who'd sacrificed holidays for a decade so their son could chase his dreams, didn't panic. His father, Jerry, had instilled in Rory an eternal optimism, a habit of looking for the positives even in the darkest moments. That morning after phone call became the foundation for one of sport's greatest mental comebacks. Then came the phone calls from golf legends. Greg Norman, the man who knew a thing or two about Masters heartbreak after his own collapse in 1996, reached out with crucial advice. "I was 21 when it happened to me and he was 40, Norman told McIlroy, making the young Irishman realize this wasn't his last chance. Norman's advice was direct. Create this bubble around you. Don't let anyone affect you or interfere with what you need to do. Be very self-centered on the golf course." Jack Nicklaus, holder of a record 18 major championships, was equally direct but more challenging. "He wanted to give me a kick in the rear end," McIlroy recalled. Nicklaus emphasized that the most pressure he ever felt was the pressure he put on himself, and that champions had to relish that pressure, not run from it. Armed with this wisdom, McIlroy made a decision. He wasn't going to hide. He wasn't going to take time off. He was going to face his demons head on. "I needed that day to learn a lot about myself, about my golf game, and what I needed to do differently when I found myself in that position again," he later reflected. 8 weeks later, at Congressional Country Club outside Washington, D.C., Rory McIlroy didn't just win the U.S. Open. He obliterated the field. He shot a bogey-free 65 in the first round to take the lead. In the second round, he fired a 66 to set a U.S. Open record for the lowest 36-hole total at 131, 11 under par. By Saturday, he'd extended his lead to 6 shots. But Sunday was where the real test came. This was the moment we'd find out if the Masters had broken him or forged him. Walking to the first tee with a commanding lead at a major championship, the exact scenario that had destroyed him 2 months earlier. How would he respond? He responded with one of the most dominant final rounds in major championship history. McIlroy shot 69 to win by 8 shots over Jason Day. His 72-hole score of 268, 16 under par, shattered the previous U.S. Open record of 272. He broke or tied 12 U.S. Open records that week. Tiger Woods' legendary performance at Pebble Beach in 2000? McIlroy beat his 12 under by 4 shots. Standing on the 18th green at Congressional, McIlroy was asked about Augusta. His answer was simple but profound. "If I didn't have that day at Augusta, I probably wouldn't have been able to win the U.S. Open." Think about that for a second. The worst day of his professional life, A day that included hitting it between cabins, 4-putting from 20 feet, and crying to his parents, wasn't a career ender. It was a career maker. But the impact of that collapse to triumph story rippled far beyond Rory McIlroy's trophy case. It fundamentally changed how professional golfers approach the mental game. Before 2011, working with a sports psychologist was something players whispered about, afraid it made them look weak. After Rory's redemption, it became standard practice. Dr. Bob Rotella, one of golf's most renowned sports psychologists, later worked extensively with McIlroy, and noted that roughly 70% of tour players now work with mental coaches. Golf is a game of mistakes by definition, Rotella explained. The bottom line is, you're going to make a lot of mistakes every time you play golf. But it's not the mistakes that define you. It's how you respond to them. McIlroy's approach to mental training became a case study. He started meditating for 20 minutes before rounds. He worked on visualization, not just of perfect shots, but of worst-case scenarios and how he'd handle them. I'll think about if I'm on a tee box. Where's the worst place I could hit it off the first tee? McIlroy revealed. And then I put myself there and I'm like, well, what would you do? There's no scenario so bad that I can't figure it out. This wasn't positive thinking in the traditional sense. This was something deeper, accepting that golf is hard, that you'll hit bad shots, and that your response to adversity matters more than the adversity itself. It's a philosophy that's now taught to junior golfers around the world. Every golfer knows that feeling when the wheels come off. But this wasn't just losing your driver swing. This was watching a kid's dream die in real time on golf's biggest stage. The cabins shot? That's the kind of thing that happens to us weekend hackers, not guys leading the Masters. But Rory used this pain. He learned from it. And that's what separates champions from everyone else. Padraig Harrington, who won 3 majors before McIlroy's US Open victory, later admitted the performance broke him psychologically. Where I was broken, Rory broke me in 2011, Harrington said. He broke everybody, but I was the best player. That's what I believed. For Harrington to say that a 22-year-old's performance shattered his self-perception shows just how dominant and how mentally transformed McIlroy had become. The 2011 Masters collapse didn't just create a better Rory McIlroy. It created a blueprint for resilience in professional golf. It proved that your worst moment doesn't have to define you. It can refine you. Remember that your worst round isn't the end of your story. It might just be the beginning of your best one. Because if Rory McIlroy could bounce back from the Phantom Triple at Augusta, there's no shot too bad, no round too ugly, and no dream too broken to be rebuilt. The cabin shot became the crucible that forged a champion. And in doing so, it changed golf forever.